we are discussing some management concepts, and in my last lecture I tried to make you familiarize with number of concepts, and today we are discussing further concepts. Today we begin with another set of concepts. Let us begin with environmental planning today. The issue of environmental planning, it is a process of collecting information about the business environment to identify opportunities and assist in planning. It is the process of monitoring the company's internal and external environment for threats and opportunities. So, we can see that the environmental planning is also an important factor in the overall functioning of an organization. Then the concept we are taking up is the first mover advantage. First mover advantage refers to the first mover advantage is the competitive advantage. In fact, all of us have understood in our introduction that the competitive advantage word we are using in today's time to look at the performance of an organization in terms of competitive scenario in today's time. So, this refers to the competitive advantage gained by a company on entering a new market or by introducing a new product or service. As the company is the only one present in the new market or product segment, it can attain market leadership position fairly easily as compared to the others who follow later. So, this company gets the first mover advantage in terms of coming to the market. Then we move on to a concept called force field analysis. This force field analysis concept is a management concept actually that comes from the literature of psychology, where Kurt Lewin had who was the pioneer in this field. And so, the force field analysis is a management technique developed by Kurt Lewin, a pioneer in the field of social sciences, for diagnosing the situations. The technique is useful when planning and implementing a change in an organization. So, Lewin has given us the strategies for change management. Then the functional organization. Functional organization is a type of structure in which the organization is divided on the lines of individual functions such as marketing, production, research, development, finance, and so on. This structure is generally hierarchical with the head of each function. So, this brings us to the issue of the use of information in computer, which is known as the garbage in, garbage out. This is a term widely used in the field of computer science, and as you know, in the multidisciplinary approach, we have seen that for managing we need so many input from so many disciplines, and of course, one of the major input is coming from the computer science. If the correct data is entered, this concept is applied to management and the situations when the companies recruit new people who may be incompetent. So, if the correct data is entered, of course, you are going to get the correct results. but suppose the data is not correct, then you are not going to get the correct result. That's the idea. So, computer as a tool has to be handled extremely carefully, well, in all the sciences, all the subjects, but when we are looking at management, we have to see that if these strategies are not giving us the best results, where have we gone wrong? Sometimes we may enter wrong data. So, from here we move on to the generic strategy. Generic strategy term is associated with Michael Porter's generic strategies, and he has talked about the cost leadership, differentiation and focus as the three aspects of generic strategies. From here we move on to an interesting term. I am sure some of you have, all of you in fact have heard about it, the concept of glass ceiling. Women are coming in the management in big way. In fact, in all fields of work women are coming, and the other day I was hearing about the our results from our this 12th examination. I found women have done much better, and more number of women have sort of scored better marks and so on. And as a result of that, they are also entering into all kinds of professions. But the concept, when women come in the management, the concept of glass ceiling is seen in a big way. This is the form of barrier created in an organization where women executives are prevented from reaching the upper level of the management. Well, maybe an attitudinal problem, we do not know what it is, but we are going to have a discussion on women in management, one of the lectures. So, there we can discuss the concept in much greater details. Then the issue of globalization, I have perhaps also used that word number of times. Also in my introduction I was talking to you about the term globalization, but what exactly we mean by that. Okay, all of you know about it because newspapers are full of that. But let us see, formally we can say globalization is a very commonly used term today, but it can mean different things to different people. At the worldwide level, globalization refers to the growing economic interdependence among countries, and this is reflected in the increasing cross-border flow of goods, services, capitals, technical know-how, etc. So, when we are looking at globalization, that means we are talking about the borderless perhaps the economies and the kind of collaborations that we have. So, globalization is many things at the same time. Then also let us see the multinational corporations. Multinational corporations, that is the term I am discussing now. Multinational corporations refer to the many corporations perhaps functioning in an environment. But let us see, according to Bartlett and Ghoshal, in fact they have done a lot of work in the area of strategy, and they have written a lot. I have gone through some of their works and writings, and they have said that there is a great emphasis on being sensitive and responsive to differences in national environments around the world, and which is organized as a portfolio of several national entities. So, when we say multinational corporations, we have this kind of understanding that you have the several national entities coming into sort of collaboration or business at the same time. That is the idea we are talking about. Then we come to yet another concept that we are going to discuss in our chapter module on organizations, where we will be discussing about the structure of an organization, particularly in India. And so, there the concept of independent director will emerge. So, let us see what is the meaning of independent director. All of you know that the companies have board of directors, and there is a concept of independent directors. Independent director, an independent director or non-executive director with no interest in the company other than the directorship. Such a director should not have any interest seen to affect the exercise of independent judgment while taking decisions on behalf of the company. So, these days the concept of independent director has also started in the Indian corporate sectors. In fact, I was told that SEBI has been trying to look into that the most of the companies must have independent directors, and they are also making a list of the individuals who could be made independent directors in certain companies. So, from here we discuss further that a sufficiently large number of independent directors on the board is considered desirable from the point of view of corporate governance. In the United States, institutions like New York Stock Exchange and Securities and Exchange Commissions have prescribed various tests of interdependence, okay, for these board of directors, okay. And this does not guarantee good corporate governance if we have not chosen perhaps the independent directors very carefully. So this concept becomes extremely important for the companies of today, and many of the American companies which have collapsed recently had many independent directors, and the real issue is to what extent the independent director can impose checks and balances on the top managers. So, selecting an independent director itself is so important and so challenging, and who becomes the independent director. So, in our country there is a big exercise going on, and we are all trying to look into that, so that this is the responsible person who can really govern the organization with perhaps the certain checks and balances so that there is good functioning of the company. This brings us to yet another concept in management. See, we have innovations, and we are trying to design new systems, the new ideas, new technologies, and for which there is an intellectual right clause. And all companies, they have the right to keep their designs and their innovative ideas under protection, some kind of a protection. So, intellectual property right is the one that is trying to look into that. So, the intellectual property right, this refers to intangible assets such as patents, copyrights, trademarks, including the designs, including the photographs, including all these things for the protection of the company or any author or anyone. So, this we every year perhaps we have one intellectual property right day also we celebrate, and the World Intellectual Property Right is responsible for harmonizing the laws across different countries and promoting the protection of intellectual property right, which we in short we say IPR. This becomes an important aspect of management studies, And so further, when we are discussing some of the modules, maybe the reference will come to this as well. Now, IPR has also become an important issue under WTO, because MNCs are often reluctant to do their business in a nation that does not provide any legal sort of protection, or any legal we can say kind of a situation is if it is created, then how to manage that. So from here we come to another question of managerial grit. Have you heard about it? Managerial grit. What kind of a grit is that? In fact, when you study leadership, you will find that there is a theory of leadership which we call as managerial grit. And in the managerial grit theory, it is the management and leadership behavior that is analyzed, and this has been introduced as a tool by Robert Blake and Morton. And this grit evaluations managers have two dimensions. One dimension is the concern for people, and the other dimension is concern for task or concern for production. And they have made a grid, and you can have so many combinations of concern for people and concern for task. So if you draw that as a grid, you can see on the one hand there may be zero concern for production and zero concern for task. On the other hand, you can have 100 concern for production and zero concern for task. Similarly, you can have 100 concern for production and 100 concern for task, some rather a theoretical position. And you can have again the same the concern for production and concern for task in various grid, the various positions that you may have. So this is a theory that we are going to take up while we are discussing the leadership theory, and this theory has made lot of contribution also in the the HRD strategy, and all over the globe these days we discuss the managerial grid theory of Blake and Morton. Then from here we go to yet another issue of management, that is the issue of application of this the managerial grid theory. The task function or the concern for production and the relation function, that is the concern for we can say concern for people. This is what I have discussed just now. These are the issues that we have to discuss. So from here we move on to another concept, what we call as the matrix structure. Matrix structure. Basically, when we are talking about matrix structure, this refers to the structure that we may have as the part of our group behavior or team building. This is a type of structure with dual responding relationships which attempts to combine the best functional and divisional structures, that is the specialization and efficiency and the sharp business focus. Subordinates are assigned to both a functional area and a project or a product area, and you can see that it looks like the structure of this type. You can see that you have a skill, you have a strategy, you have a system, style, staff, shared values, structure, okay, and people from different types of scenario, okay, they get combined into a matrix structure. From here we move on to mission. Every organization, when that starts, has a mission. That this is my vision, this is my dream, this is what I want to do. And here we are talking about that concept of mission. According to Peirce and Robinson, a well-designed company mission must accomplish number of outcomes, and in fact they have listed 7. Unanimity of purpose within the organization, the basis for motivating the use of organization resources, general tone of organizational climate. The general tone of organizational climate would also refer to generally the organizational climate as we are trying to create to serve as a focal point for those who can really identify the organization's purpose and direction, we can say. And this brings us to the issue of, this is also the organization purpose that we are discussing, to deter who cannot do so by participating in further activities. This also mission also would refer to translation of objectives and goals into a more structured form involving the assignment of tasks to responsible people within the organization, and to specify the organizational purpose and translation of this purpose into goals in such a way that cost, time and performance parameters could be assessed and controlled. So, this is very important when we are looking at the management as a subject. In our motivational analysis, we will also be discussing a theory called the need hierarchy theory. Need hierarchy theory, which is proposed by Abraham Maslow, is an important theory about human behavior. And this is a theory of motivation that focuses on the needs of human beings. Abraham Maslow, a behavioral scientist, proposed the need hierarchy theory in 1954 in his book on motivation and personality, and ever since we have all been working in this area, and how the need hierarchy works, that becomes an important aspect of our inquiry. The needs begin with the lowest level need, the physiological needs, then you have the safety, security needs, then you have the social needs, and above that you have the belongingness needs, self-esteem needs and self-actualization need. Social needs and belongingness needs are used interchangeably by many authors. So, you can see that there is some kind of a hierarchy of need. So, this is what the authors have said, hierarchy of need, and of course, the assumption of this theory is that man is motivated by the lowest order needs. Once the lowest order need is satisfied reasonably, not the maximum, the reasonably, then we get motivated to the next order need, social need, security need first, safety and security needs first, then the social and belongingness need, and these are the lower order needs. And then comes the higher order needs of self-esteem and self-actualization. And actually these lower order needs are the prerequisites, the preconditions to the higher order needs. So, it states that human beings are motivated by unsatisfied needs and the certain lower order needs to be satisfied before the higher order needs become important. And this goes on to say that the needs, when the deficiency needs are met, other higher order needs emerge, and these in turn are satisfied. These will in turn will satisfy the new and still higher order needs, and it will emerge, as, and so on, it goes on. So, as you can see, and that will motivate the individuals. So, actually the challenge of organizations is that how the lower order needs of their employees are reasonably satisfied, so that they reach the higher order needs and really make contributions for themselves and for the organizations. And so, this is one of the motivational theory for work motivation, which we do in our management studies paradigm. From here we come to organizational culture. We had just talked about culture, but a step ahead, I can say, from culture to organizational culture we are talking about. This is culture within an organization, that is what we are discussing. So, organizational culture refers to a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguishes the organization from other organizations. So, that means every organization is an entity, it is a social entity, and it has its, it begins with a mission we have discussed, and it has its values, it has its own climate, its goals, and perhaps the expectations from the members. So, it refers to the system of shared meaning held by the members that distinguishes the organization from other organization. Professor Sheen has given us this this definition of organizational culture. If I repeat, it refers to a system of shared meaning held by members that distinguishes the organization from other organizations. So, so what we are trying to understand is that every organization is different, and so when we are looking at the organizational performance, we have to see that how our organization culture has developed and what needs to be done further in terms of our performance evaluations. The next concept that I am going to take up is about organizational commitment. Commitment of people in organizations is an important issue. And in fact, when it comes to the competitive advantage, we have to see that people with commitment are there in our organization. So, the degree to which an employee identifies with a particular organization and goals and wishes to maintain membership in organization is defined as commitment, which Robbins, Maude, Porter, Steer, they have all looked at commitment from these we can say these perspectives. And so, they define commitment as a belief in the acceptance of organizational goals and values, a willingness to exert effort towards organizational goal accomplishment, and a strong desire for maintaining organizational membership. You must have heard about the attrition rates. These days the attrition rates are a really big challenge for the organizations, and we can analyze that because of the lack of organizational commitment, the attrition rates might increase. So if we have, firstly we could create some conditions, but then we could also select people, because that also might relate to the personality of the people. So this is going to be again this discussion. In fact, I might spend about half an hour to 45 minutes discussing this issue later in one of the lectures. Then the next issue I am going to take up is about organizational justice. Some of you must be wondering, what kind of a justice is that? What are we going to talk about? See, every organization, since organization is made of people, and we have to understand this concept of organizational justice in the minds of people. This organizational justice, this deals with fairness of results or end product, which may be called as distributive justice, to the fairness of the process through which ends are attained, which we call as the procedural justice. And the former is related to the satisfaction, and the latter is related to the employee's belief that the rules are followed. So when we have the commitment of people in organizations, then we have to understand also the issue of organizational justice, because commitment, organization justice, and the other concept that is coming up is organizational support. These may be related to each other, and sometimes may be functioning as some sort of a intervening variables between performance and commitment. So we have to actually look at some of these micro level issues while we are trying to manage the human resources. Next issue, as I said, the organizational support. Next issue is organizational support that we are looking at. Organizational support, this is defined as the degree to which an organization takes care of its employees. It is based upon the global belief concerning the extent to which an organization values their contributions and cares about the employees' well-beings. So in our earlier discussion, when I was trying to introduce you, I said that we have people, we have systems, we have managers, we have different levels of hierarchy. Okay. So if the organization has to really work, then the organizational support system also becomes an extremely important factor in management. Then the issue of learning. Briefly I had touched upon that earlier. Let me touch upon the issue of learning once again. Organizational learning can be viewed as a conscious attempt on the part of organizations to improve productivity, effectiveness and performance. So, organizational learning perhaps will take the organization to greater heights, because it is creating and perhaps utilizing innovation, new knowledge, and perhaps some experimentation that may be very unique to your organization. So, organization learning is a process of continuous adoption of behavior in line with changes with the environment. A leading organization can be described as an organization skilled at creating, acquiring and transforming knowledge and at modifying its behavior to reflect new knowledge and insight. Often many organizations, they just try to follow whatever has been fixed and the routine, and there is no room for innovation, creativity. But organizational learning, when we are saying that the new organizations are the learning organizations, we are actually using these two terms often interchangeably, the organization learning and learning organizations. So, we have no choice if we have to really compete in today's market with the global economy. We need learning organizations, and so every organization has to really gear up for becoming a learning organization in the years to come. Is it clear? Organization learning and learning organizations. So, you have to, you can't actually ignore innovation and creativity of people, of organization, of any kind of a new idea, because everyone has something new. Only thing is that we have to create such conditions that people give their new ideas. Sometimes of course it may also be redundant, but the organization should encourage new ideas and should encourage and value people with ideas, because not all of us have the similar capacity for we can say novel ideas. Only few of us can do the interpretation and alternative interpretation of new ideas. So we have to really value those people in organizations. Okay. So if we go just by a very routine strategy, we may not succeed, because as we have discussed the organizational commitment and other things. See, if a creative person doesn't find opportunities in your organization, he might quit, and that may be a bad business for you. So, you have to see that organization learning environment is also created. From here I take you to yet another issue, that is organizational renewal. In fact, all these issues that we are discussing are just an introduction to this course. Perhaps we will have, and we could have one full lecture or maybe more on each one of these issues. So many of these issues we are going to discuss as part of our modules in this whole course, and some of these we might discuss in a part of some lectures. Okay, so I thought I'll give you some kind of a picture, I can say, some kind of a picture of the management studies as a subject, and so that's what I'm trying to paint a picture. So coming to the issue of organizational renewal. Organizations need to renew themselves continuously, and the excessive focus on learning from past experience and capturing best practices in policies and routines perhaps can also lead to organizational inertia and inflexibility. In fact, flexibility is one of the important concepts in the literature of management, and these days as part of this strategic management. and if we are not using flexibility, then the inertia prevails. And so organizational renewal, where organizational learning becomes an important aspect, is important for the management studies. So, when we are looking at the issue of renewal and organizational learning, we have to see that the great organizations understand the importance of renewal. Most of the great, when we say, I say this, I mean the successful, okay, or the organizations which have been there, for along many years. Okay, great, when I am using that word great, I mean something like that. Okay. So, these organizations are important organizations. They understand the importance of renewal. They believe in setting some stretch targets. They understand the importance of being flexible, and they constantly throw the organization into the disequilibrium, even though it may create discomfort. So, what we have to understand is that the renewal process, sometimes it may be a challenge, and so that becomes very important for the renewal. This brings us to also the performance management, which is very much related to the earlier concepts that we have discussed just now. Performance management involves goal setting, performance appraisal, and reward systems that align work behavior with business strategy, employee involvement, and workplace technology. So, performance management, when we say, it is many things at the same time. It relates to the issues, like, in fact, many authors have used the word performance management with performance appraisal. Interchangeably, this has also been used in the literature. But when we are saying performance management, it is about evaluation of performance, and also the whole process of performance is evaluation, and also the reward and the feedback that people might have, and as a result of that, the employee performance. So, that is why performance management becomes a process which has many issues and many aspects. So, and this is in fact one of the most important concepts that we have to understand, whether we look at the issue of diversification, or the issue of downsizing, or the issue of renewal, some of the issues that we have discussed earlier. Performance management becomes a very important aspect of the whole management process. This brings us to the further issues in performance management, that performance appraisal, which I said is often being used with performance management, is the term applied to a variety of processes that involve assessment and development of individuals and their performance at work, both in terms of their existing effectiveness and potential for improvement. So, as I said, performance management is a process. So, it involves many things at the same time. It is not just that what the person has, how many pieces the person has produced just now. Okay, that is just one aspect of it, because when we look at performance management, we have to look at so many issues which may be quality terms, which may be quantitative terms, which may be tangible, which may be intangible, which may be short term, which may be long term. So performance management has again become quite an important and challenging issue, and in fact that's one of the important goals we are looking at when we are teaching management studies. We are looking at the performance of individuals, performance of organizations. From here I will introduce you to another term, that is personality. In fact, the purpose of giving you these 2 lectures or maybe more to introduce you to some of the management terms and management concepts, so that when we are going to different topics, different modules, okay, you have at least some idea about what are we trying to discuss in this particular module. Next concept I am going to introduce to you is personality. Personality of an individual, of an employee. Personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psycho-physical systems that determines his or her, well, I should have written his or her, his unique adjustments to the environment. Well, that is a definition of output that I have taken as psychologist. So, these are the unique characteristics that an individual has, and as the performer is the major component in the whole process of managing a system, we have to understand the personality of the performer. So, from here, well, personality, there is a lot of literature on personality, and these days when we are talking about the performance management, or we are talking about any strategic management, we find that personality becomes an important aspect. So, further to this we are going to take up in some lectures later. Let us move on to the pest analysis, what we call, and when we were pest analysis says the combination of political, economic, social and technological factors. These are important for any kind of a situation or for any kind of a contingency analysis if we are trying to talk about. So, if you would recollect in the beginning of our course, we had discussed that one of the we can say approaches to management is the contingency approach, where we are trying to analyze the situation and then moving on to decide about the particular decision or a strategy or any kind of a method that we are going to adopt. So, when we look at the pest analysis, the idea goes back to the contingency approach, and this refers to a framework introduced by Steiner and Andrews for understanding and analyzing the organization's external environment. So, one thing is the internal environment when we are talking about people, about the internal system, machines, the internal policies and internal systems, but here it is about the external environment. So, every organization, see, the organization is there, but internal environment is one thing, but this is also within an external environment. And this analysis, and without that, actually if we do not analyze that, the same industry with different pest analysis and another industry producing the same thing with a different pest analysis might have different results. Okay. So, this is one important issue. So, this is a framework that has been introduced, and by analyzing the political, economic, social and technological trends, the useful information is generated for the strategy formulation. So, when we are trying to introduce any kind of analytical framework, if we have all these information with us, then perhaps we can have a better analysis. We can also talk about, as part of introduction and making you familiar to the concepts of management, we can also talk about the purpose, process, people doctrine. I am sure you can translate that according to your thinking. And when we are looking at this, the authors have tried to talk about 3 core capabilities which distinguish the great organizations. I have been using this word great organizations, I do not know whether wrongly or rightly. I mean here the important organizations, well established organizations, and they have certain characteristics. Okay. So, the idea here is about those organizations. Then in our strategic management literature, we have an important view that we have, that is being discussed in the recent years, that is the resource based view of the firm. And the resource based view of the firm, in fact, this is a, we can say that this is a theory, like we have talked about many of the motivation theories and leadership theories and other theories. This is also one of the theories of the strategic management subject, and this theory states that the firms differ in fundamental ways because they possess a unique bundle of resources, tangible and organizational capabilities to make use of those assets. Okay. So, each firm develops competencies from these resources, and when developed especially well, these become the source of firm's competitive advantage. So, when we are looking at the values, these could be in terms of the training of people, these could be in terms of the commitment of people, the quality of people, all these factors become very important when we are looking at the resource based view of management. One of the important aspects of management is scenario planning, and we talk about scenario planning for analyzing the management concepts. Now, I will introduce you to the concept of scenario planning. Scenario planning is a unique technique. This is a technique which involves visualizing different ways in terms of external environment, in terms in which the external environment might develop, and in future, and accordingly the strategies could be formulated. So, that is the scenario planning, and there are many techniques and there are many ways of collecting information for scenario planning. It involves identifying social, economic, political or technological developments that might have significant implications for the firm. Accordingly, pictures of possible outcomes are developed, and in this context we have many examples. For example, Shell is considered to be one of the master scenario planning examples. So there are many others, but here for the purpose of just my teaching I have picked a few. So that is the example I have picked up here. So the idea here again is that if you have to really do the scenario planning, you need information from all directions perhaps, only then you can draw the picture, okay, some kind of a futuristic picture, if I may say so, for your organization, and then you can design your strategies accordingly. Then when we are looking at these issues, we have yet another concept called Six Sigma. When we are looking at the strategic management, Six Sigma has become an important aspect. Let us see the what is Six Sigma. Six Sigma is a discipline, or we can say a disciplined approach to qualify the fact that quality that helps to develop and deliver near perfect products and services is important. And so the word sigma is a statistical term that measures how far a given process deviates from perfection. So when we are looking at the Six Sigma, we are looking at the performance of an organization, and the performance of an organization, Six Sigma is a high performance data driven approach to analyze the root cause of business problems, and solving them. It ties the outputs of a business directly to the customer requirements. Six Sigma uses some of the methodologies for the performance management. So with this we are closing today's discussion, and some of the other issues, concepts I am going to introduce in my next lecture.